Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are opening a book that tends to split the room the second you say the author's name.
It really does.
It's one of those titles you might see on a CEO's bookshelf, right next to The Art of War. But then you'll also see it getting absolutely shredded on a Reddit thread for being manipulative.
Yeah, that's the perfect description. Depending on who you ask, the author is either like the modern Machiavelli writing a manual for supervillains,
Yeah.
or he's one of the few people being honest about how the world actually works.
Without any sugarcoating.
None.
We are talking, of course, about Robert Greene, and specifically his massive exploration of our inner workings, the laws of human nature. Now, before we get into it, I think we have to talk about that reputation.
We have to. The online discourse is intense.
We saw two camps, really. One group looks at his earlier stuff, like the 48 Laws of Power, and they just see pure manipulation. A guide to exploiting people.
I saw one user call it cringeworthy supervillain cosplay, which is an amazing phrase. It is. But then you have the other camp. People in, high-stakes corporate jobs, tech, politics, and they see Greene as more of a survivalist.
Right. He's not telling you to be the predator.
He's giving you the predator's playbook so you can spot them before they spot you.
And that's the lens we're using today. We are focusing on maybe the most uncomfortable law in the whole book. Law number 2, the Law of Narcissism. And I want to be really clear up top. Greene is not using narcissist the way we throw it around on social media.
No, and this is so crucial. When we hear that word, we think of, the selfie-obsessed influencer or a toxic ex. We think it's a diagnosis for that person over there.
It's always someone else. But Greene's whole thesis is, well, it's kind of a slap in the face. He says narcissism isn't this thing a few bad people have. It's a mechanism, and we all have it.
Exactly. He
Yeah.
says it's a spectrum, and every single person listening, including us, is somewhere on that line.
Okay, let's stop there for a second. Because that feels, I don't know, a little cynical, doesn't it? I mean, I try to be an empathetic person. I care about my friends. Saying everyone's a narcissist sounds a bit edgy for the sake of being edgy.
It does feel cynical until you hear his biological argument.
Mm.
At its root, Greene says narcissism is just our intense need for attention. And for humans, attention isn't a luxury. It's a biological requirement.
You mean like food and water level requirement?
Literally. Think about a baby. If you give an infant food and warmth, but you deny it eye contact interaction, it doesn't just get sad. It physically withers. There's a condition called failure to thrive.
Wow.
We are hardwired to need other people looking at us to confirm we exist. Without that feedback, our brain it short circuits.
So as we grow up, that need doesn't vanish. It changes its shape.
Precisely. And we develop what he calls a self-esteem thermostat.
I love this analogy. Break it down.
Okay, so imagine your self-worth is the temperature in a room. Life is always opening a window. You get a rude email, someone ignores your text, you feel awkward at a meeting. The temperature drops, that sinking feeling. Right. For most people, what Greene calls the functional narcissist, the thermostat just kicks in. You tell yourself, okay, my boss was just in a bad mood, I'm still good at my job. You generate your own heat, you self-soothe.
So being functional just means you can tell yourself you're okay without needing someone else to do it for you constantly.
Yes. And because you can regulate your own temperature, you have energy left over to focus outward. You can actually pay attention to other people. You have a cohesive self.
But that's the middle of the spectrum. So what happens when the thermostat's broken?
That is the deep narcissist. This is the person who's below that functional line. They don't have a coherent sense of self. They lack that internal voice that says, I am okay. So they're always freezing.
And the only way for them to get warm is
to steal body heat from everyone around them. They need constant, nonstop external validation just to feel real. It isn't vanity, he says, it's panic. If you stop looking at them, they feel like they're literally disappearing.
that almost makes them sound more sad than dangerous, like an addict.
It is an addiction.
Yeah.
But he argues they're dangerous because of how they get that fix. And to get it, they have to see other people in this really specific, dehumanizing way. He uses a psychological term here. Self-objects.
This was the part of the chapter I found genuinely chilling. Self-object.
It explains so much toxic behavior, though. It means the narcissist does not see you as a separate human being, with your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own bad days,
They see me as an extension of them.
like an arm or leg.
So my only purpose is to do what they need me to do.
Exactly. Your job is to praise them, to listen to them, to reflect their own importance back at them. And think about it. If your own arm suddenly refused to pick up your coffee cup, You wouldn't get curious about its feelings. You'd get annoyed.
You'd think, why is this thing malfunctioning?
And that's exactly how a deep narcissist reacts when you push back or have your own needs. They don't just get mad, they get enraged. It's what's known as narcissistic rage. It's not a normal disagreement, it's an existential threat to them.
The book used this historical example that was just wild. Leo Tolstoy, the author, and his wife Sonia.
Oh, the Tolstoy story. It's a perfect example of this. So Tolstoy has this big spiritual awakening later in his life. He decides he wants to be perfectly honest and pure.
Sounds noble on the surface.
In theory. So right before he marries his 18-year-old fiancée, Sonia, he decides there should be no secrets between them. And he hands her his personal diaries.
And these aren't your typical Dear Diary entries.
Not at all. They're filled with graphic details of his gambling, his affairs, his frequent visits to brothels. He makes this sheltered young woman read every single detail.
I can't even imagine. She must have been devastated.
She was weeping, in shock. It haunted their entire marriage. But Tolstoy, in his own diary, he wrote about how wonderful and unburdened he felt. He didn't care about the effect on her. He just used her as a receptacle for his guilt. She was a prop in the movie of his own spiritual journey, a self-object.
It just perfectly illustrates that point. He wasn't connecting with her. He was just using her to regulate his own thermostat.
And that's the danger, because these people can be incredibly charismatic. They have this gravity that pulls you in.
Let's talk about that gravity, because if they're such energy vampires, why do we follow them? Why do they end up as our bosses? The book talks a lot about the narcissistic leader.
This is where it gets really relevant to our modern world. Green argues that in times of uncertainty, which is, let's be honest, all the time now, we crave certainty.
Right. Most of us have doubts. Imposter syndrome, we worry.
Exactly. But the deep narcissist, they have zero doubt. Because they are living in their own reality, they have 100% belief in their own greatness. And that total self-assurance, it reads as confidence to the rest of us. It's magnetic.
We think, wow, they have it all figured out. I'll follow them.
The I alone can fix it mentality. But Green warns it's a trap, because once they get power, they don't actually lead. They create constant drama. They start fires just so they can be the hero who puts them out. Everything has to revolve around them.
And speaking of things revolving around us, the book gets into how the modern world, especially social media, is making all of this worse.
Oh, yeah. He sees social media as a massive amplifier. He uses this term, emotional permeability.
Permeability, like a membrane.
Exactly. Before all this, you had some walls up. You didn't know what everyone was thinking and doing every second of the day. You had space. Now, those walls are gone. We're constantly absorbing the envy, the outrage, the curated perfection of millions of other people.
It's messing with our thermostats.
It's breaking them. And he argues this has created a very specific modern archetype, the self-entitled slacker.
I highlighted that one. It just feels so current.
Doesn't it? It's the person who believes they're a genius, but they haven't actually done anything. They confuse having an idea with doing the work.
This is that pampered prince or princess mindset he mentions.
Right. They feel entitled to applause and rewards without any of the struggle. They've posted about their brand or their project, and now they expect the validation to just roll in.
So here's the key question for engagement. We all know someone like this. What happens when you try to give them, say, constructive feedback?
They either crumble or they attack. They don't reflect. They just get hostile. It's the system is rigged, or you just don't get my vision.
So what's the play? If you have a deep narcissist for a boss, or this self-entitled slacker as a coworker, what do?
Green's advice is really blunt here. Do not engage, or at least do not engage on that deep emotional level. You cannot fix them. You can't reason with them.
That's a hard pill to swallow. People want to help.
I know, but trying to help just makes you a target. If you challenge them, you trigger that narcissistic rage. Green's advice is basically to get out of their way. Manage them, placate them if you have to for your own sanity, but do not get drawn into their drama.
So, it feels a bit bleak. We have these dangerous, deep narcissists, the rest of us just trying to stay functional, and a culture pushing us all toward the deep end.
It does. But this is where the book pivots. He says there is a way out. There's a way to take all this self-focused energy and transform it.
And he calls it the law of empathy. But, you know, empathy is such a buzzword. It just means be nice, right?
Yeah.
And be nice doesn't sound very Robert Greene.
No, and that is a fantastic point. He is not talking about sympathy. He's not saying you have to feel bad for people. He defines empathy as a tool for social intelligence, almost like a spy's skill.
A spy skill. Okay, now I'm listening. How does that work?
He says the first step is to mute what he calls the incessant interior monologue.
That little voice in our heads. What should I say next? Do they like me? Do I sound smart?
All of that. That noise is what prevents us from actually seeing the other person. He says you have to turn your focus completely outward. Treat the person in front of you like an anthropologist discovering a new tribe.
So it's about observation, gathering intelligence.
It's twofold. He calls it visceral empathy and analytic empathy.
Okay, let's start with visceral.
Visceral is physical. It's reading the nonverbal stuff. The tone of voice, not just the words. The look in their eye. The way they hold tension in their shoulders. You try to almost physically feel what they're feeling.
And analytic empathy.
That's the detective work. You try to understand their values, their background, their pressures. What are they most afraid of? What gets them excited? When you combine the physical feeling with that intellectual understanding, you get a full picture.
Okay, but devil's advocate here. That sounds exhausting. Why should I put in all that work just to have a conversation? What's the payoff for me?
The payoff is connection and power. Green argues that the deepest principle in human nature is the craving to be appreciated. When you give someone that kind of deep, focused attention, it's intoxicating for them.
Because you're feeding their thermostat.
You are feeding that universal need for validation. They drop their guard, they trust you, they like you. And by stopping your own desperate search for attention, you end up getting all the attention and influence you wanted in the first place.
It's the paradox. To be interesting, you have to be interested.
It's a cliche for a reason, but Green just adds this layer of strategy to it. It's about navigating the world with your eyes wide open.
Now, I want to circle back to those Reddit critiques we mentioned, because sometimes reading this, it does feel like he treats all human interaction like a chess game.
And that's a totally valid criticism.
Yeah.
His view of human nature is, it's a cold one. He assumes everyone has a dark side. If you're a natural optimist, this book can feel pretty heavy.
And what about the science behind it? A lot of people point out that he doesn't really cite academic studies.
That's the other big thing people should know. Green is not a psychologist. He's a historian and a pattern matcher. He's looking at huge swaths of history and finding the common threads in human behavior.
So we should read this more like a philosophical code book, not a medical textbook.
Definitely not. You shouldn't try to diagnose your partner based on a chapter of this book. It's a lens, a very useful lens, but it's not the only one.
And there's a real danger that if you take this too literally, you could become a bit of a narcissist yourself by trying to analyze everyone.
Huge irony there, yeah. And that's why the empathy part is so important. The goal is to understand people so you can connect with them, not just outmaneuver them.
It really all comes back to awareness then. Awareness of others so we don't get trapped, but also awareness of ourselves.
Awareness of our own thermostat.
So let's leave our listener with something they can actually do. How can you test this out?
I think the most powerful exercise is to run a little narcissism audit on yourself in your very next conversation.
An audit. How does that work?
Next time you're talking to someone, a coworker, your partner, anyone, just try to catch yourself in the moment. Ask yourself, am I actually listening to what they are saying?
Or am I just waiting for them to take a breath so I can jump in with my story or my opinion?
Exactly. Ask yourself, am I treating this person like a complex individual, or are they just an audience for my performance right now?
That is a very confronting question to ask yourself.
It is. But if you can catch yourself doing it and then deliberately shift your focus outward, ask them a real question, you will feel the entire dynamic of the conversation change.
It sounds like such a small thing, but if Green is right, it's the difference between being trapped in your own head and actually having power in the world.
And in a world this noisy, that kind of connection, that's the ultimate superpower.
Robert Greene's The Laws of Human Nature. It's a huge book. He's a controversial author, but it will definitely make you think.